Thank you all so much for joining us for our first installment of Feel Good and the Hunger Project's Empower Hour. Our hope is that through these calls, that we can continue a conversation and continue our integration of our two movements. We are really excited about integrating the Feel Good community into the Hunger Project family even further and strengthen our commitment to a world free from hunger together. So with that, I am going to pass things over to Margot, and she will be introducing us to our speaker this evening. So Margot.
Hello, everyone. So Tatiana Scantlebury serves as the Women's Empowerment Research Associate with the THP Global Office, Monitoring Evaluation and Learning Programs team, and as an Associate Director to the National VISTA program at Hunger Free America. In her role with THP, she has led research on the strategies and areas of growth across women's empowerment programs and has developed a strong connection to the work of the organization. She had the opportunity to learn about the various initiatives that have impacted families within their partner communities. In particular, she focused on gender-focused strategies within Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, Ethiopia, India, Mexico, Bangladesh, and Uganda. In her research, she was able to make valuable connections with THP experts and leaders in the field, working directly with their community partners. Through a series of interviews, she was able to forge a meaningful relationship based on a common goal, improving the understanding and implementation of women's empowerment strategies. These conversations are not only propelled her understanding of women's experiences globally, but ignited her advocacy for gender equality and advancing the 2030 agenda. In her role with Hunger Free America, her journey began as the NYC AmeriCorps VISTA Program Coordinator, and she soon after became the Associate Director to the AmeriCorps VISTA program. Her time as a Public Ally AmeriCorps alum with the Center for Corps Innovation has afforded her the experience that her current members are participating in. As the Associate Director, she has the liberty of managing nationwide recruitment to the Hunger Free America Anti-Hunger Corps program. This program engages VISTA members in partnering organizations beyond the soup kitchen by breaking down barriers and providing improved access to healthful, nutritious foods. The AHC VISTA program aims to address hunger, poverty, and build the capacity of the agencies that address these issues. So with that, here is Tatiana.
Hi, everyone. I would like to firstly thank Ashley, Chloe, and Margot for inviting me to be a guest speaker to this event. I'm happy to see all your lovely faces. I feel like we're family already just being here on this call, and I do hope all is well wherever you are currently in the world. As mentioned, my name is Tatiana Scantlebury, and I'm going to be discussing my journey here and how and what led me to THP. So I just want you to think about what does this look like for you and what was possible for you, right? The questions that I'll be answering tonight is what my journey looked like, what are some of my goals, and what's next for me. So I wanted to take a trip down memory lane just because reflection is really key for myself. I went to a historically Black college located in Delaware. It's a small but mighty school, and I studied criminal justice as an undergraduate. My focus was to become a homicide detective. That was what I was going to do. I was passionate about that. I said, I'm going to be a homicide detective, and I learned I had to be a cop, and I said, oh, that is not Tatiana. So I had to start over, and I wasn't quite sure what my next steps were. But I knew I had a burning passion for women empowerment. I knew I had a burning passion for criminal justice reform. And I also knew that international relations was somewhere in the mix, but I wasn't quite sure what that looked like at that time. And again, freshman year, full of dreams, full of aspirations, but wasn't sure what to do and how to get there. So throughout my matriculation through undergrad, I was definitely treading through the waters, joining a lot of organizations and just finding my niche and figuring out me as a person, right? And that takes time. And 4 years gave me that experience and what it looked like. So junior year came and I saw this opportunity to study abroad. And I said, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And this was an opportunity where I studied in London, where I looked at the criminal justice system and compared it to the US. So looking at the European criminal justice system and what that looks like and how it's completely different or share similarities to the US. I had an amazing time. Now, if you ask me how long I was there, it was a week, but I would speak about it as if it was a month, because that is how much I was inspired and impacted by it. And there I was at the International Court of Justice, and I figured, this is it. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to study international criminal law. I'm going to look at human rights. I didn't know any of these things at the time, but I had my professors who were there to shape and name what those things look like. And I was set on that goal. And no one can tell me anything different because I was just so passionate about it. And it was there I was learning about like the international atrocities that were happening across our global community. And I was that person that said, I need to do something about this. And what do I do? I learned about the International Criminal Court. Of course, I knew about the United Nations just because my family I'm of Caribbean descent. So that was some of the close relations there. So again, it was only a week, but it felt like a month and it felt as if I could never leave. So during that time, I was trying to figure out what would be my next steps and do I go to grad school? Do I go straight into law school? And it was most of back and forth, but I wasn't quite sure. So I came back and it was time to start for graduation. Senior year came really fast and I wasn't quite sure what would be my next steps. I saw my friends applying and getting into grad school. And I said, Tatiana, what's next for you? You haven't started applying for anything yet. And for myself, I am very much of a planner. And if things are not going well, it's like a major breakdown. It's like, what's going to happen? I literally had a list of things that I needed to get checked off, and it wasn't happening that way. So I really did confide in my professors during this time to really help me figure out what were my next steps. And through that, I was able to apply to graduate school. So during that time, I looked at graduate school and I also looked at AmeriCorps. Now, I knew nothing about AmeriCorps, but when I went to a career fair, one of the representatives, I was explaining to her my goals and my passions and what I'm really interested in. And she mentioned that there was a young woman who also did the same thing. And she's currently an AmeriCorps member, and she's studying right now in Europe to become a lawyer. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to speak to her. So from that moment on, I figured I can apply for the AmeriCorps program while also simultaneously going to grad school. And I did that. And I was doing that full time. So I was a full-time grad student and a full-time AmeriCorps member. And everyone said, Tatiana, you are crazy. Because that is a 35-hour work week with a full-time graduate student workload. And I did it right after I graduated undergrad. There was no break. And here I am now, right? So I just think back to like reflection and how that worked. But during my time as an AmeriCorps member, I was, again, working at CCI and learning a lot about criminal justice on a more local level and what that looks like when it comes to criminal justice reform here in New York City. And being able to look at it locally and also globally still. So I was still getting the experience that I needed and what it looked like for myself. But again, I wasn't fully, I felt like I was not there yet. And I needed to know what else can I be doing? Where else should I be looking? And from that moment on, it was kind of like I felt a little bit lost, but I did have some guidance. So I finished my AmeriCorps service, and it was still very hard for me to find a job. So I ended up taking a volunteer position. So this is in my second year of grad school. And that volunteer position, it was a paid volunteer position, but I was only making $15 every 3 hours. So yes, I love the expressions. I absolutely love getting these expressions because it's, thinking back to it now, it's just, wow, you've came this far. So I can already see a lot of you may be on the call here thinking about what your next steps are and what life is for you. So I'm here to help and also give guidance as well. So during my time volunteering, I was providing free legal services to my community. I'm from the Bronx, New York, born and raised here of Caribbean descent. And the stories and the people that I've encountered, that experience in itself is one that is really unexplainable because people are really suffering, and I had the opportunity to help, right? And also be there as a source of encouragement. I've dealt with, there's many different cases where people were dealing with either substance abuse or needing to find housing, and they didn't know what to do. So we were there as a source, as a sense of guidance, providing all the free legal resources that they needed. And every time it was like, wow, you guys are God sent. You guys have helped me so much. I've had a case where a woman, she had all of her things taken from her. So basically in New York City, we have the housing department, and it's called NYCHA. So it's also considered like, it's a different name, but it's called NYCHA. And they can evict you at any point in time. And she was evicted and had nowhere to go. And every step of the way, she would come back every single Wednesday. That was her day because she knew I was there because I was still in grad school. So everyone needed, when I had a list of clients when I was gone, they're like, Tatiana, where are you? Your clients are calling you. I'm like, I'm coming. So I was there to help her, and I will never forget her and her family because she always said, I don't want to work with anyone else. I want to work with you because you know my case. You've been with me every step of the way, and we were there to help her. So in the end, we did figure out where her items were because they had taken them out and just left them there on the street. And she needed someone to come and pick them up. But long story short, that was like many of the cases that I had to deal with where people are just going through a lot of things and needed assistance. So after that time there at Legal Hand, that was where I was volunteering. I, again, needed a new set of what's my next step for me, just because I knew that I was getting ready to graduate and I really wanted to have a sense of fulfillment. And in that moment, John Jay, where I attended college, they were hosting a career fair. And I said, hey, let me just go to this career fair and see what opportunities are there for me. So I went, it was virtual. This is also at the height of the pandemic, at the very beginning of the pandemic, right? So all the things are happening. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to find a job. I'm graduating with my master's. Either I stay at Legal Hand and continue to make the $15 for every 3 hours and not be able to, have a sustainable living. And I'm living in New York City, right? Or I find another fellowship, or just different things were running through my mind and racing. And I was like, I don't know what to do next. So I went to this career fair and I only saw one organization that I wanted to apply to. And I'm sure you guys may know, it was the Hunger Project. And I loved everything that the Hunger Project had to offer. And I think that was mainly because during my time as an undergraduate student and in my human rights program, I was learning about all of the international relation things that were happening in the world, learning about women empowerment. And what really propelled all of this was the genocide in Rwanda. That was like one of my main things. So I'm leaving out details here, but I think that we can definitely go into that because I would love to hear some of your voices as well. So I saw the Hunger Project and I said, I have to sign up. And I went to sign up and there was no more spots. So I was just like, well, I tried. And I said, you know what, let me just send in my resume either way, because they only fulfill a certain amount of spots for interviews. And I did not make the cut. So I sent in my resume either way, and I think it was about maybe 2 weeks, about 2 weeks afterwards, I got an email from Pablo, and I was jumping up and down. I was like, oh my God, yes. And I was super excited to know that they wanted to invite me on to just do the interview. And at that time, I also had other opportunities as well. So I was just weighing out my options. And AmeriCorps with Hunger Free America, that was also an option along with something else. And when I did my interview, Pablo had told me that I made it to like the final 3. And I was just like, wait, you guys are choosing me? I have like so many other things going on. Are you guys serious? He's like, yeah, the team loves you and we really want you to come on. I was in tears. When I tell you in tears, just because I've been through so many other things, and it's just like, I've made it here. And this is just where I wanted to be. I'm seeing it in fulfillment. I'm seeing things that I've written down and I've put into the universe. So in that moment, I was just super excited. I was like, when do you need me to start? So I joined THP. I actually applied as an intern, and then it turns out Pablo said, hey, I know that you just graduated with your master's, so we would like to make this a part-time job. And I said, I was just so excited. I said, thank you, of course. And I was just like, wow, things are coming into fruition and things are happening. And it took a lot of patience, and it also took a lot of perseverance and determination for myself, and just believing that things can get done. Because my middle name is procrastination, and I will be very honest, that is something that I've experienced in my time throughout doing all these different things in life. So currently, yes, as mentioned, I was working at the Hunger Project as a part-time research associate, and then also doing full-time work with Hunger Free America. And as you can see, there's a lot of correlations between doing 2 things at once and full-time and part-time. So that's something that I've been able to manage. And I think one of the questions that may come from this discussion is, what does time management look like for you? And what does it mean to have a planner? When I tell you all, I wrote a lot of things down, a lot of voice notes and multiple calendars that went into my work and the things that I've done throughout my time here. So yes, so currently at the Hunger Project, I have been able to work with the MEL team, and that experience in itself speaks to everything that I am passionate about. I had the opportunity to work with wonderful, wonderful program countries who are working on women empowerment in their prospective countries. And being able to see the work that's being done and have conversations when we're talking about women empowerment, it definitely propelled me and makes me see that this is definitely worth it, right? Being able to be an advocate for yourself and an advocate for women in local and global communities. So throughout my time, yes, I was doing a lot of interviews and speaking with various program country representatives and experts in the field, and hearing about what women empowerment looks like for them. And especially during the time during COVID, right? A lot of things have shifted when we're talking about doing this work, but being able to see that there's still initiatives being done and taken to highlight and amplify the work of women and women voices. So I definitely would like to take this time to hear some of your voices. I know that I have tons of things that I've done, but I definitely want to hear, like, what are some things that you all have experienced, and when it comes to thinking about next steps and what goals look like for you, if anyone's willing to share.
I was just going to say that a lot of that really rings true for me, because I'm also, at about the same stage as what you were recently, just like trying to figure out, where I want to work and, how everything will fit together. So it's reassuring to hear that, it'll happen eventually.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will, Laura. It will. if anyone else, if not, I'll just go into like what goals and next steps look like for me. I definitely want to hear your concerns or anything that's currently going through your mind with everything that I've shared with you all tonight. Okay, so I'll go into a little bit about like what next steps look like for me. So currently I serve as the first and youngest president of the United Nations Association Bronx chapter. So the United Nations Association is an organization that focuses on promoting the work of the UN within their local and global communities. And oftentimes for myself, when I think about women empowerment, especially in international spaces, I always say that there's not enough women that look like me. And as a Black woman and a woman of Caribbean descent, I want to be able to share those experiences and have spaces where women of color are within and are at the forefront of international work. So being the first and being the youngest, especially within this space, gives me such a great honor to be able to share this work. Now, when we're thinking about the Bronx, especially the Bronx, New York, I feel that sometimes there could be a disconnect in what the UN looks like and how do we relate that work to our local communities. So in my time as the president, I am thinking about all these different initiatives that I can have within my community and what that looks like when we're talking about women empowerment, what that looks like when we're talking about criminal justice reform. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I alluded to that I really would like to become a lawyer and thinking about going into law school and studying international criminal law or international human rights law. So right now I'm taking those steps needed, right, to prepare myself for what that looks like moving forward. Now, it is going to be a longer journey, but I still have the faith that I'll be able to get there just because I know that this is my passion. I know how passionate I am about it. And I know that I'll be able to have a great source of resources just there for me, especially currently right now with our current climate. So my goals definitely look like going into law school or working for another non-governmental organization or the United Nations, and taking that opportunity to really propel the work and amplify the work that is currently happening in our global communities while focusing and highlighting women first. So I would like to just take this time to thank you all. I think there's so much more that we can speak to. And yes, I'll pass it to Chloe just to see if we can go into questions and answers, or if there's anything else that you guys would like to hear from me. I definitely want to have this be more of like a discussion, so please let me know.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. I have been really looking forward to this because I didn't know a lot about your story. So thank you so much for taking us through the experience that you've had these last few years and how you've come to work with THP and what you're going to do next. So I know some of you did submit some questions when you filled out the RSVP form. And I think that we can go ahead and answer some of those unless anyone has questions they might like to start with now that are more related to Tatiana's own personal experience. No? Okay. Tatiana, I know one of the questions that we had talked about is about the impact of COVID on the communities of women that you had been interviewing.
Yes.
So would you mind speaking to some things that you learned about COVID in the communities that THP is working in?
Yes, of course. Thank you for that, Chloe. So I've worked in various program countries, but the two that really came to mind with this question was Uganda and Mexico. And I say that because during the time of COVID, it became really hard to really go out into the communities and do this work. So I'll take a step back a little bit. When in regards to this work, I'm really referring to collecting data, and able to do that, they had to go into the communities and conduct surveys. And that's something that you're not able to do if you have to be in close proximity to other people. So something that really that was highlighted, and I felt that was really interesting that they did as an initiative. They used megaphones, and this is another way that they were able to get the information and also inform people within the community of what this work, what they needed to get out to them. So that was something that I found really, really interesting, and I was able to hear that this is something that was working for them, and they were taking the initiatives needed to still get the information out while also making sure that safety measures were put into place. And secondly, when I mentioned Mexico, so in Mexico, they're dealing more with the rural communities, and oftentimes they're very far apart. So in particularly to get into communication with people, it was really hard because they were not able to travel in town. So then that time, it was the youth that were able to uplift and also advocate for their elders when getting this information out. And in that way, they learned more about the technology and how technology was able to help them with communicating and getting the message out as well. So they created WhatsApp group chats, which was really interesting, which we use here in the States, where they're able to promote and get information in regards to what's currently happening within the epicenters. So those are the two program countries that really were highlighted during my interviews, that they did phenomenal work in trying to also adhere to the COVID-19 restrictions.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear maybe a few maybe key takeaways that you had during this survey experience, maybe like themes that you've heard from an overwhelming amount of women that you surveyed, or just if there was anything that really stood out to you as something you maybe didn't think about before, or I don't know, just anything that, any kind of surprises or what you felt was profound or something like that.
Yeah, sure. So one thing that definitely comes to mind when we're talking about like accountability, I think that was something that really came up because oftentimes when we're talking about women empowerment, I would say with India particularly, they have a massive advocacy measurement that's in place right now. We're talking about accountability and having women at the forefront of these conversations. So uplifting their voices and making sure that policies are implemented. That was something that really was, that I was interested in hearing about, and also it was of surprise to me as well, just to see that women are doing this work knowingly, that living in a patriarchal society, right? And it's hard sometimes to have your voice heard, and even though you have a quota system, but still trying to figure out what's next, and how do you mobilize women who are living within these communities, right? So that was something that was really, really essential, and that came as a surprise to me, especially seeing how massive India was able to like mobilize and have a larger number of reach in women when it came to advocacy work.
Thank you. So there have been a few more submitted questions, but I want to make sure to leave space for anyone if anything's coming up and wants to ask a question now, or we can keep going with some of the questions that have been submitted earlier.
Chloe, I wonder, can we go back to the question in the beginning? So like, what is possible? And just thinking about how are we going to get there? I think Laura had alluded to this a little bit earlier in their comment in regards to sharing some similarities and what does it look like for yourselves. I'm understanding that some of you all are students, correct? And are you guys trying to figure out what's next for you in life, or is it just here and there? I see Troy is nodding.
Yeah. No, we definitely have some seniors on this call who are probably thinking about next steps.
Yeah, I would love to hear from you all. Definitely one word of like what's happening right now during your senior year, especially virtual learning. What does that look like for you all? Don't be shy.
I can speak to that, I guess. I'll step up and do it. So yeah, I'm a senior or we say fourth year at UVA. But I'm a little bit unique because I am doing an extra year to do a master's. But I mean, I have all my classes online virtual, and it's weird. Like it's weird doing 3 years at UVA of a very lively group of people, and especially being involved in FeelGood. It's always lively and it's always fun. But then it's weird having to go online and try to keep that same energy up and have the same motivation. Not to say there's not pluses to it. There are some actually pluses to the virtual learning, but yeah, it's been a transition and kind of sad. I mean, I'm lucky, like I said, I have an extra year kinda, so I hope by next year maybe I'll be better. But I know my co-presidents here and a couple other I know feel good seniors are here, and yeah, it's a strange kind of place to be in.
Yeah, I think for myself, that's definitely, I can relate to that as well, because graduating, it was at the height of COVID and I was just finishing off. And now to hear that you all are doing things virtually, it could be a bit, the motivation could go down. So I completely understand that. And just maybe finding ways to keep yourself motivated. I don't know what that looks like for everybody. If it's journaling or finding something new to do during quarantine. Yeah, it's definitely something that a lot of students are experiencing. So I completely understand. Thank you, Maya.
Could I jump in with a question?
Of course.
Is that okay? Okay, sorry, Pablo, I don't know if you unmuted yourself. I'm so sorry. I'm driving, so I can't really see everyone. I just see speaker view. And my question for you is, there are so many incredible causes to get involved with. There's just, no shortage of climate change, racial justice, women's reproductive rights. I could go on and on. And especially in this year, with having just, incredible opportunities to get involved. How did you choose what you wanted to pour your talent and your energy into? And any words of advice to folks who are maybe navigating that decision, and trying to decide how they want to dedicate themselves and create change in the world when there are so many incredible causes that are options?
I thank you for this question. And I'm laughing as you asked because I was just there a few years back and I was like, I want to do all of these things. And I don't know if I have the capacity to, but I will make it happen. And I think I just needed to take a step back and say, Tatiana, what are the things that you can focus on right now in this moment? And what are the things that you've done in your past and that are able to propel this conversation and what that looks like in the work that you want to do? And for me, the main things that kept coming up that really was always at the forefront of the work that I was doing was women empowerment and was criminal justice reform. So I found myself always within those spaces. I found myself always wanting to go and learn about what's happening in the international criminal world and what's happening locally. Wanting to know what are other countries doing when it comes to gender equality and SDG 5. That's my favorite one, 5 and 16. What are countries doing right now when it comes to that? What are my local communities doing? And I think for someone that is looking for advice and that are figuring out how to just narrow that down, I think it's really just being true to yourself, right? And saying, hey, what are the things that I'm deeply, deeply passionate about? Because I know that we all can, dabble within different things. But if I could choose one right now, if someone told me to choose one, what would it be? And that's something that I hadn't had a mentor at that time, but constantly when I was telling everyone about all the things that I want, they're like, you have to choose. And I'm just like, I cannot. How can you tell me, Tatiana, to choose something? I want to do all these things. But it was also a reality check, right? That it is possible to work within different variations of what your goals are, but also choosing one or two and then starting there and then develop from there. And I think that really would help as well, because then I understand some seniors, you're building up your resume, you're preparing to go somewhere else. And I'll be pretty frank with you all, applying for jobs, and now as someone that's hiring someone, if they see all these different things, it's like, where's the constant, there's always a shift. And not to discourage, right? Because I think everyone should try different things, but I've realized that oftentimes that's what's being looked at. So just being cognizant of that, but I definitely would say try it and test it out. But then also, if you had to choose, to do your top 5, right? And then you'll be able to see the things that you're really passionate about, and the things that you've been working on, right? And then develop that out, because you can create your own business or start your own business, even in that, or join a nonprofit that is focusing on this and that's it, right? And I think that's how I landed at THP, because I realized women empowerment is something that I really was passionate about. From all of my thesis papers were always about women empowerment. I didn't choose another topic. It was either talking about Rwanda and how they built up their whole entire political system after the genocide, and it was women at the forefront, to looking at gender equality and women in the political system here in the US, and how many women of color are there. And that was like all the things that I was super passionate about. So thank you for that question. Chloe, I do see, I feel like Katie had mentioned to pick an SDG career path quiz. Yes, I believe that's something that is actually, yeah, that's great. I'm assuming this is a suggestion, and I think that's really great as well, because then that helps you narrow it out. And I will be quite honest, I did take a lot of tests to see what my career path is. So I was that person, and it's very interesting. A lot of them came up to be a diplomat, and I said, a diplomat, me? So that was interesting as well. So it's of guidance for you all.
Yeah, Katie, maybe we can add that to a list of projects we're working on. Develop our SDG career path quiz.
I love it.
I think it would be really fun. Pablo, were you going to ask a question before Maritza had chimed in?
Yeah, just really quickly. So I work for THP, and I actually had the privilege of working with Tatiana in her role with us. And one of the things that stood out to me that actually I feel like I tried to model after you, Tatiana, is your ability to establish rapport and build engagement, even in this virtual space. And for some of you, it sounds like you're on the cusp of making that step. And it could very well be, even if things start to improve, that your introduction to your new team or what have you will be in this sort of virtual space. But at the same time, you still need to build sort of those relationships, which I think is just such an important thing in any type of workspace. And you've done that very successfully. I think you've already established rapport even in this even in this call with a lot of people. So do you have any recommendations for how to sort of build relationships given all of the obstacles that we are experiencing currently?
Hi, Pablo. I miss you. And yes, I do. And it's so funny that you asked that question, because I was just telling Chloe, Ashley, and Margot that in my graduate program, I was named as the unofficial official secretary/advisor to the group, because I'm always getting everyone riled up and saying, hey, these are the announcements, these are things that are new, these are things that you need to get done, and just advocating for the new folks that are coming into the program. So to your question, I think at least for myself, I found that it could be really difficult trying to be in certain spaces where you're not quite sure who everyone is, and being able to open up and be within a space. For myself, I was able to just create different icebreakers. Sometimes that is something that really helps, just to engage and get conversations going. And I will say that's something that I learned during my time as an AmeriCorps member, because in our sessions, we always had an icebreaker, and I did not know what to say, but I really developed that skill where I'm able to bring into the space, hey, let's try this new thing and see how people feel about it, right? especially during a virtual setting. It could be really difficult. I feel like we're probably all zoomed out and just ready to just give it a quick, but make it fun, right? Because you want to be able to still live as if you're living in normal times, as we would say, right? Where you're in person, but you can still be able to do that networking and have a good laugh while also doing business as well. So definitely stay true to yourself, especially with the calls. If you feel as if you're not the person to bring up or speak about an icebreaker or create one, I'm pretty sure someone on the team will be able to do that. So definitely I would implement icebreakers. That is like my favorite thing. It could be something as simple as, what is your favorite color, right? What is your sign? What is your dream job? And if you had to invite or tell your dream job to somebody, what would that look like? Just start thinking about those little things, because it really opens up a conversation and you'll get to know a lot more about a person.
So I know I was able to sit in at the end of last spring on a virtual leader meeting at BU. They continue to do all of their executive team meetings, even through quarantine and COVID, online. And since we also have quite the delegation from UVA, would a representative from either one of those schools maybe like to share ways that you've started to engage virtually at the beginning of this school year, and maybe how, like, what you've learned from wrapping up this spring and starting the fall virtually?
I can speak to that.
Thanks, Alex.
Alex Jr. In the BU chapter. So a lot of things we did at the beginning of the semester was just like invite everyone to come to our meetings and just try to encourage a like close and collaborative group rather than it being very much like those who have already been in the club versus those who haven't. And I think one of the things we emphasize as a club is like the idea of like really meshing everyone together, and the idea of like inclusivity is really important to us. I think that's like really helped us kind of be able to have these meetings and have them go smoothly throughout the year and also over the summer when we had a few.
I want to jump in because I think Alex is maybe selling them like the chapter, what they've been doing, a little bit short. My name is Kate. I'm an alum from UVM. I'm also a grad student at BU, and I get your emails. And you all have been doing an amazing job of being clear about how people can participate. So they're really welcoming because you've made yourselves really accessible. So it's clear, like, you can come to meetings and this is what will happen at the meetings. So it's not just like a blind logging onto a Zoom call. It's like, here are some of our faces. There's this ridiculous picture of Remy taking a selfie wearing a FeelGood shirt at the end of all the emails. So like just making it clear what people can expect and like how people can be involved has been something that I've noticed in your emails that seems like it would be really welcoming to people who are sort of navigating like virtual school in this very odd time. And from what I can see, you all have been doing an amazing job.
Oh, thanks for sharing an email, Remy. I don't know how you're going to be able to share it in the chat, but I'm looking forward to seeing your selfie at the end of every email. How do I get on your listserv? I would like to join immediately. Thank you for sharing, Alex and Kate. I am glad that you chimed in to continue to elevate and put a spotlight on our chapter superstars. And as we get closer to the end of our call, I just want to again circle back to see if anyone has any more specific questions for Tatiana. And if not, I think we can maybe start to wrap up and close out.
So I don't have any questions and I'm way past my college years, but I will say that there's a lot of relatability. So I have 3 MBAs and I've been through a lot of uncertainty in my life. And I really related to your story. First of all, I've never heard it before and I love it. So thank you so much for sharing. There's so much power in story, and what I see so evident in yours and even relatable in my own is that when I went to college, I had no idea. I was the first to go to college in my family, but also I had no idea what I wanted to major in, what I wanted to do. I didn't even know what career fields were out there for me. And I was surrounded by people like yourself who literally found like joy in the uncertainty in some way, shape, or form. Like what I hear is like you created so much certainty for yourself in the midst of uncertainty, but also had like the patience to sit back and watch things unfold as they should be. And then the other piece that I love so much about you and, in the meetings that we've had is that you have so much courage to go first. And you guys, I think like as young people, it's really important to remember that like your voice matters. And the more that you leverage it and use it and go first, you have no idea what doors that's going to open for yourself and for others. And a lot of times your courage to go first break down barriers. Like watch one person starts talking and then everyone's like, oh, okay, I can talk too. And I feel a little bit more comfortable. And so one thing that I just love and appreciate about you, Tatiana, is like, you have this innate courage inside of you just to like go first. And I think Pablo really shared that when he asked you your question. So my last question to you is like, if you could give one piece of advice wrapped up in this little like nugget, big present with a big red bow to the people on this call, what would that be? What's your like one piece of advice?
It's actually very funny, this advice. So I thank you for that, Ashley. And I appreciate that you see that in myself. Oftentimes I don't, and that's very real as well. So the one piece of advice is, it's interesting that I recently got this. I've gotten so many things of words of wisdom and words of advice, and I'm just like, I don't know how to utilize this and where can I actually begin? And something that came to me last week, actually, and this person told me preparation meets opportunity. That stood out so heavily, especially in that moment, because I was planning a whole major event this week and there were so many other things happening on my end. And all he said was preparation meets opportunity. And I sat down again in reflection and I said to myself, you have taken the time to prepare, maybe in the ways in which that you didn't think you were preparing, but you were preparing yourself to where you need to be right now, right? And I often have to remind myself of that. You're constantly preparing, you're preparing, you're preparing. You're speaking about it, you're putting it out there into the universe, while also knowing that, again, like you mentioned, uncertainty. I don't know what my next steps are. I don't know what will be offered or what the next opportunity is, but I'm preparing myself, right? So if you don't remember anything that we spoke about today, I just want to remind you all, preparation does mean opportunity. Continue to prepare yourselves for what you want in this world. Again, like Ashley mentioned, yes, I am the person to take the lead. If you would have asked me back in elementary school if I was going to be doing all the things that I'm doing right now, I would probably tell you no, because I am super shy. I was the shyest person ever. And now they call me Talkative Tatiana. So preparation definitely does mean opportunity. And I believe each and every one of you will get to the places that you want to be in life, even if that takes time. Think about the steps, right? Think about what you want to do. Write it down. Scream it into the universe if that helps. But you will get there. You definitely will get there.
I do have to say, manifestation is a very powerful and real thing, because when I was a student way back in the Stone Age, the year 2010, and I was first introduced to Feel Good, I knew, I was like, I'm going to work for them one day. And I kept saying that year after year. And look where I am now, friends. So the universe wants to give you what you want. And I totally agree that opportunity meets preparation, or preparation meets opportunity. So I would love to thank Tatiana for spending some of her evening with us tonight, sharing her story, sharing her wisdom, and joining us for a discussion that I hope leaves you feeling some inspiration and motivation, and looking forward to having you take some nuggets back to your chapters as we continue to remain true and strong to our commitment to ending hunger by the year 2030. All right, friends.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure seeing all your lovely faces. Please stay safe, take care, and find something, one thing, right? One thing that you haven't done before to just bring you some energy in your space, right? Just to uplift your spirits. If that's yoga or doing something new, finding a new niche within yourselves, I think that's something that will really help you think about your purpose and what life is about. Because you'll find something new about yourself that you didn't know you can do.
Yes, awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And again, thank you, Tatiana, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you
night.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chloe, I'm adding you to the email list.
Thank you, Remy. You can also, if you want, just text me your selfie every week.
It's literally the same selfie. I had this vision that we would get other people to also take selfies, and then we forgot. So it's just the same picture of me at the end of every single email.
You should put a form in your email to submit a selfie for the next email.
That would
Yes.
be so cute.
Oh, Remy, I was thinking there's something I learned about myself I didn't know. It's called Padlet. So I love to create things, right? Maybe if you like do a Padlet or send it out to everyone, they can like create their own little board and put selfies of themselves as well. Something fun. So you can consider.
I will
Yeah.
look into that. Thank you so much.
You're
Thanks,
welcome. It was a pleasure
Remy.
meeting you.
You too. This was a great talk.
Yay.
Best of
Thanks. Good night, Remy. It was good to see your face.
Good night.
Good night. Yay!
Yay.
That went so well.
Thank you.
Should I pause the recording? 'Cause I can do that.
I'm very proud of you.